Hello, everybody. I'm Nicholas Snow. Welcome to another special episode of the Nicholas Snow Show, part of the 6-episode special during a week in which I'm celebrating Desert AIDS Project's 36th anniversary. By the way, my pronouns are he, him, and his. And there's a lot that I'm doing when I'm producing and hosting this show, and often I'm very much in my head because of all of these different details. And while many of my interviews about Desert AIDS Project have been a little bit emotional, I found that in preparing for today's episode, which features a case manager who helps people access and navigate the myriad of services that are available to them as a person living with HIV and AIDS, I've thought about my own experiences when I needed to connect to care myself. So 9 years ago in July of 2011, I was on the edge of homelessness. I had no money. I had no health insurance. I say that I was on the edge of homelessness because even though I didn't have my own place to live or a way to pay for it, I did have a friend that told me I could sleep on his sofa if I needed to. But I was able, because of my marketing ability, to negotiate a trade with a resort property and then a trade with another resort property that allowed me to do marketing and PR for them in exchange for a roof over my head while I was on the waiting list to get into the affordable housing complex associated with Desert AIDS Project, and to also become an official client, because there's a process. And this was well before the Affordable Care Act. So even accessing healthcare was much more complex than it was now. And let me tell you that not knowing where to turn to access care and medication can be overwhelming, as it was for me, for someone living with HIV as I am. If they've lost a job or insurance, and especially if they need food and help with housing, there are more services and programs available than many patients realize. Case managers at social service organizations are often unsung heroes, which is why in this special week of broadcast celebrating the 36th anniversary of Desert AIDS Project, my show is spotlighting today case manager John Machado. People in need, they have a friend in John, they have a friend in all of the other caseworkers, frankly, and everyone that works with or volunteers for Desert AIDS Project. He's an expert at uncovering ways to attain health services, and based upon each client's unique story and his own 27 years of experience, he knows what he's doing. And so John is going to be my guest today. In full disclosure, Desert AIDS Project is a sponsor of PromoHomo.TV, but this series of episodes is pure journalism. It's not advertorial, which is advertising disguised as journalism. I don't do that on my show. So I wanted to let you know that on today's broadcast, we are learning on how Desert AIDS Project, and John in particular, is empowering people living with HIV and or AIDS. So I'll be back with John after this. If you happen to be watching this broadcast live, comment and your question or comment may be featured on screen. I love for this to be interactive when it can be. Most of my views are watching after the live broadcasts, but I do want you to know if you're watching live, I'd be honored to feature your question or comment. And without further ado, I would love to bring on my guest today, John Machado. Welcome, John. It's so great to see you.
Thank you for having me, Nicholas. Nice to meet you also.
So I actually we do know each other because I think one of the things that you gave me permission to talk about is that we are both in recovery.
That is correct.
And for me, recovery has been so important on having the life that I have that works today. And I was wondering, before we get into the specific work that you do, if you would describe the journey that led you to become a case manager at Desert AIDS Project, because I know that you've been of service to people in California for decades.
Sure. Once again, my name is John, and I would have to say, my God, from the young age of like 12, 13, 14, I knew there were services out there for some reason. And I told my mother one day, I think I'm gay, I need to go see a therapist. And this was in Thousand Oaks, California. And my mother had looked for sliding fee scale therapy, and she found some at Cal Lutheran University. And the best thing that woman told me was, John, I am not here to change you. I'm here to make you feel comfortable with who you are. And that was a woman who saved my life, and I will always remember her. And I keep in touch with her every so often. She lives in Camarillo still. And I think that was one of the first signs I wanted to go into the helping field, because I realized one person could really help another. And having my own little anxiety stuff going on, and I was a weekend binger. I would hold my breath all week and then binge on the weekend and hold a job and be a great employee and all that fun stuff. But I would say throughout the years, I've worked in all these different facets. I started at the Gay and Lesbian Center in LA. I worked at West Hollywood Homeless. I've worked at USC County Hospital. I've worked in several treatment centers. I've worked in New York. I got to work at the Gay Men's Health Crisis in New York, which was amazing, which is, I guess, 1 year older than Desert AIDS Project. And also having a sister who was dual diagnosed. My sister suffered from mental illness and addiction. And so seeing her struggle and realizing that in this country, in America, pretty much, unless you are bloody or suicidal, there's really no help for you. So everyone has to advocate for themselves. And so if you are a person who suffers from something as minor as anxiety to something heavier, you really need to advocate for yourself, because sadly to say, no one's going to really pull you out of it. And so the more you know about resources, the better chance you have of getting a better life in this life. And I am testament of that. I was a young, anxious child who believed the world hated me. I thought, being gay was one of the scariest, ugliest things, I guess. And I was raised Catholic. And lo and behold, my journey started with that first therapist. But I still had a lot of anxiety, and alcohol worked really well to taper my anxiety down. And so thank God for help, and thank God for the ability to get here, because life is very different today. But I would not have been able to do it without resources. And and being a dyslexic as well, I was still told I had a fourth grade reading level about 12 years ago. And I've used vocational rehab. And if you're here in California or any part of the United States, vocational rehab is available to you. There's a small office in Palm Desert, which you can Google. It's called vocational rehab. And back in the day, they would even help recovering addicts and alcoholics get back to work. They today help people coming out of prison, and they work with companies who know they have a record to get back to work. If you have a simple diagnosis that's written down that says you have an anxiety disorder, social disorder, learning disabilities, they will help you get back on your feet. It was designed to help Americans get to a purpose in life. And that will help you so much, because they will help you pay for schooling. They cannot really tell you exactly what to do. You can tell them what you want to do. If that is going to vocational school and becoming a hairdresser, or if that is going to school for a master's in social work, that is quite fine as well. And these are nationwide. I went to them in New York City. I've gone to them in Long Beach when I got my last degree at Cal State Long Beach. And I apologize for this phone. I'm going to turn it off really quick, hopefully. And needless to say, they will help you with books, audio. They will help you with graduation fees, things like that. If for some reason your dream is to work at IBM, they have a program where they will literally pay your salary for a couple months sometimes and get you trained by IBM and get a job with them. And so it's pretty amazing all the resources that are out there. I think sometimes I learned early on when I worked in Phoenix at St. Luke's Hospital. I had a man who must have lived in the outskirts of Phoenix, and I was helping him with depression, and I was a psych tech at the time at a chemical dependency unit. And he was like so amazed that there was help. Like he had never known there was help. And it made me realize there's so many Americans that don't realize that there's something you can do if you have anxiety. There's something you can do if you have codependency. There's something you can do if you have alcoholic parents. There's something you can do if you've been traumatized in your life. There are solutions for everything. And life can be lived so much better where your shoulders can drop down and you won't feel anxiety anymore. And that's an incredible gift we have.
Well, thank you for sharing your action-packed opening statement. I really appreciate that. While you were talking, I did show in a large screenshot the organizations that you wanted to share with the viewers today, and now the same contact information is in a scroll at the bottom of the screen throughout the broadcast. Do you mind if I ask you to describe your life in 1983? Whatever might have been going on, and then I'll explain afterwards why.
Sure. My life was pretty chaotic at home, and because my sister was acting out with her dual diagnosis, so I went to a private school, and I got to go away, and it was an amazing place where I was. I was in Watsonville, California, and in 1983, I was enjoying my life at boarding school, and that's what's going on for me.
And do you mind if I ask you how old you were in 1983?
I was 13.
Okay, so in 1983, I was 21. It was the beginning of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. And what changed my life was seeing people who were living with and dying of what would become known as HIV and AIDS. And I learned at that time that my biggest power was to express my own life force and to express my truth. And I had been an activist ever since. I didn't become HIV positive until 2007, decades into practicing safer sex. And I was also sober at the time. And what I know in retrospect is that one of the things that led me to practice unsafe sex was depression. So this speaks to the broader services that are available at Desert AIDS Project, because now over half of your clientele aren't in fact living with HIV or AIDS. They're people that are coming to you for broader medical care.
True.
So anyone in watching this show, whether they're living with HIV or AIDS, or whether they want to keep from ever having HIV or AIDS, Desert AIDS Project is there to help them. I'm wondering if you would describe the challenges of someone that comes to the agency. Just describe some of the issues that they're dealing with, and how you personally and your team turn hopelessness into hope, and despair into light at the end of the tunnel.
Right, understandable. I think it's kind of like going to a hairdresser, and perhaps you don't know about hair, and that hairdresser hopefully has some good information for you. And just like with me, my whole job is pretty much looking at resources. When I'm not doing much, I'm collecting resources. And so for many of our clients who come in who are negative or positive, a lot of them have no idea even what a sliding fee scale is. And sliding fee scales exist also nationwide. And what they're normally geared for is, like, there was an agency in LA even where 4 doctors in East LA wanted to open a clinic and provide healthcare to people who could not afford it. That's called Altamed. And so basically you can find these places everywhere. And if it's for therapy and you're next to a big university, normally those students who are working on their hours will work on a sliding fee scale. So it's normally geared for people who perhaps don't have um, insurance for mental health, or if it's in regards to a clinic, it is for clients who have no insurance. And that helps clients get back on their feet with their healthcare until they can perhaps get on Medi-Cal or perhaps covered California. And if you're undocumented, we will also see you as well. We will see you on a sliding fee scale. There's also a program called MISP that will help the undocumented people with emergencies. They will do prescriptions for like $2. They will do outpatient visits for $5. If you have to go to the ER, it's about $10. And that's for undocumented people who are not here on a visa.
I actually qualified for my health care through MISP before the Affordable Care Act was in
Nice.
place. And when the Affordable Care Act came into being, I was able to then qualify for IEHP, the Inland Empire Health Care Program, which is the entity in our county that works with a broader organization. I want to say it's Medi-Cal, but
That is correct.
IEHP is part of Medi-Cal, and IEHP is the agency which serves people living in Riverside County. Does IEHP expand beyond Riverside County?
I'm not sure about that. I do know there's two entities out here pretty much that cover it all, which is Molina and IEHP. So it'd be kind of like saying AARP Medicare. They're kind of the ones that manage it. A lot of our clients love IEHP because they seem to offer a lot. They have a walk-in mental health clinic in Palm Desert, which is great until you can find a psychiatrist or something like that you need. Because the reality is here we're very short on mental health workers in the Valley. There's a lot of need for it, but it's hard to come by. So that's great that IHP offers that. Also, people are immobile. Perhaps they have broken their leg or they're very sensitive to the heat. You can get a note from your doctor, and IEHP will transport you to your appointment. And what I've been doing normally lately since the pandemic started is I've been getting a plethora of calls of people losing insurance. So depending on your criteria and what your situation is, there's many ways California is looking at your needs, basically. So the nice thing about that is if you're HIV positive, a lot of times you can qualify for Medi-Cal if you make under around 17,000, I think it's 700 right around there below. If you don't fit into that criteria, you can go up to ADAP. As long as you're single, you can make about 64,800 and below, and they will help you with premiums. And what they've also done is perhaps your old job gave you COBRA. They will cover that premium for you or help you get onto a platinum plan. And that's a great program to have. They will also, in the meantime, cover your medication. And for many of those clients, also always remember there is patient assistance programs. If you're out of insurance, you can reach out to the pharmaceutical companies and they will give you free medication. For any clients out there with a plethora of medication, the hardest one I seem to deal with is diabetes, but we're talking about mental health medications, HIV medications. Always check and just Google, like if you're taking Purple Med, just Google Purple Med copay card, and you will probably find something. And luckily our clients here have me, so I do all that kind of work. But if you're someone in the general public who's looking for it, you can always do it that way. And if you're watching from Mid-America, another way to do it as well.
So, do you happen to know how many case managers work at Desert AIDS Project?
I am the only one of my kind. I'm the clinic case manager. So what they have me for is I don't have a specific caseload like I did in New York. In New York, I was dealing with the dual diagnosed. And here what I do is I'm able to help everyone because I'm not paid for so much through Ryan White. So what they brought me on for is to really help also a lot of the people who are HIV negative. Because we have a lot of clients, women, men, whoever, who are not positive or perhaps are HIV positive and don't want traditional case management, or one, don't qualify. If you make too much money, you're not going to qualify for Ryan White case management, which is more of a traditional case management. And there's about 10 of those case managers, which are the medical case managers. And they're very different in the sense where they have a caseload, and depending on where you land, if you're medically case managed or non-medically case managed, you have to meet with them at least once or twice a year. And they're helping you with a lot of other things like housing. They have different money resources to look into for different things that I don't. they will follow your case more so and help people, especially who are getting sober. There's a lot of our clients who come here who are dual diagnosed as well, and they're just getting back on their feet. And many of them are coming in here just on sober living. And a good success story would be just like you said. I love you said that you were in action, because we have a population in America, even in New York, that thinks like there's some magic housing ticket that you're going to come somewhere and tomorrow you're going to have this wonderful apartment furnished. And I love that you said you did all this action to stay housed, and eventually you got your housing. And the thing I loved about New York was they really watched over clients, and the clients who were truly working on self would get housed. It was incredible. And so I love that. So please remember, housing is a process. There's no magical ticket that has it going that fast, at least, just so you know that. So those case managers will follow your cases. They help, like I do. If you fall out of insurance, they'll kind of tell you what to do. Let's get you a PAP, which is a patient assistance program, for some free medication. Or, oh my God, I wasted too much money on this. Can you help me with my rent? And that's only for HIV positive clients who fit under a financial criteria for Ryan White. And so for my job, it does not matter what you make. In the sense where I'm not traditional, is like I'm more of like a concierge. I will tell you, you need to call this number, and this is where you're going to get that information. The regular case managers are more like travel agents, and they kind of like go along with you.
I'm sure you've been told before, as you've declared earlier, that you are one of a kind. And I'm so happy that you're doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just to break it down more personally for you and my audience. So, it took me a while, as you mentioned, and I did qualify to live in the affordable housing complex associated with Desert AIDS Project. I was on a waiting list for 5 months at the time to get into a studio, and 3.5 years to get into a one bedroom. I have benefited from and still partake in mental health counseling. I don't think that one can ever have too much mental health reinforcement, period. I'm a huge advocate of mental health, and I've also been able to differentiate that when I have depression, it's not clinical, it's not medical, it's situational, and there's a medical term for that. So I benefit from that. This is something that's available to everybody, but every single day of my life, I'm wearing something from Revivals that I bought. Revivals has 3 locations in the Coachella Valley, and as you know, all of the proceeds from the gently donated items that go to Revivals go to support patient services at Desert AIDS Project. I also I am a beneficiary of the dental clinic. I get my teeth cleaned tomorrow, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
I went to the COVID triage clinic to have a COVID test. I have accessed support groups. Periodically, I volunteer with the media team. I consider my service to DAP this week part of my volunteerism. I have benefited and I have benefited from the monthly farmers market that used to happen in the food pantry at Desert AIDS Project, and now because of COVID, it happens once a month outside in partnership with the Find Food Bank. I know there are other services at Desert AIDS Project that have empowered me and thousands of other people. So one of the reasons I went public with my HIV status is to give a name, a face, and a story to someone living with HIV. And one of the reasons I go public as a client of Desert AIDS Project is to give a name and a face and a story of what Desert AIDS Project is actually doing for people. So I just wanted to share that with you personally, and to be public with my disclosure of the myriad of services that I have benefited from directly. With that said, are there any particular services that I may not have mentioned or that I did mention and you want to elaborate on more as we move further ahead in the interview?
Sure. Right now, we also offer some food delivery services for people who perhaps cannot get out of their houses. As long as they're a patient of the clinic, they do not have to be HIV positive. They're more than welcome to sign up for that. And they can just be simple enough that they're older and it's too hot. And one thing I do want to mention is on the housing issue, really quick. You do not have to be a HIV positive client or have any issue, period, to apply for housing. Just remember that. There's programs for people who are 55 and older, and programs even that are for people who are 65 and over. And some of them move pretty fast. If you're willing to live in Indio, they go like 6 months. Palm Springs tends to be a little bit more popular. It's about a year and a half. But if you're already paying rent and it's not stabilized, I would recommend applying to housing because it's just a good way to know that you might be more secure in the future if you're living on a certain amount of income. And what happens normally with housing is they'll take 30% of your income to pay for that rent. And this goes on nationwide again, as I said with everything else. Different states have different programs, so you just have to check with the case manager or look on the Human Service website. Other programs we have going on, like you said, dental. If you don't know much about our dental, just remember, please, it's for people who have Medi-Cal or who have no insurance. We also have wellness, so we have chiropractic, we have acupuncture. Most recently, not too long ago, during normal times, Urban Yoga had moved in downstairs. So luckily, as a staff member and a client, we get yoga for $5 a session, which is amazing. Some of our clients get massages here. We have a Walgreens on campus. We have a LabCorp on campus. Like I said earlier, we have case management. We also have a housing department, which is open to everyone. We have our STD clinic. We have our regular medical clinic. We also offer women's health. We also have our COVID unit as well. And if there's anything on behavioral health, obviously, which is amazing. And let's think. I covered pretty much all of it. And also, mostly just helping. And just remember, if you ever sign up to be a patient here, you can just call that number below. They will sign you up to be a patient. You don't need insurance. And usually, if you have any further questions about resources, you can always call me as well. Normally, the major services I do are for our clients, but I have no problem answering a few questions for anyone who calls me.
I neglected to mention directly, but my primary care physician is also at Desert AIDS Project, Dr. David Morris, the Chief Medical Officer, who I featured on this series earlier in the week. I've gone to see the chiropractor, Dr. Cox, as you've mentioned. I have benefited from the Dr. Aronow, the neurologist. I have been able to see physician assistants when I needed to go through their triage, and what that means is that you can report to the clinic early in the morning without an appointment as an established client of Desert AIDS Project, and get on a list to be scheduled with someone to see you right away. This cuts down on ER visits, so it's pretty amazing. I want to just thank you. Is there anything you would like to say in conclusion?
Sure. I love my older patients, so I really want to make sure they always have anyone who's older, because I know sometimes we're not taught by our parents or in life how to prepare for many things. So I meet so many people who are living on such a small amount of money. And so please remember that, most places, and even here in the desert, there are food banks usually daily somewhere. And make sure you do check into your copay cards. You do check into housing. There's so many times with my HIV clients that I'm always amazed that they didn't know about copay cards, or they had no idea that ADAP would pay for their insurance. So please look into resources, because the more you prepare for the future, the less anxiety you have. That is one thing that got me through college as dyslexic. I would prepare my little butt off ahead of time, and I had no stress and graduated with a 3.35 from Cal State Long Beach, and that was amazing because I prepare and I really do the work ahead of time. So as you're moving along through this world, please ask questions. I think one of the worst things in this country we do is we're just so afraid to ask for help. And the reality is there's so many times when somebody might have information that's going to help you so much. And I'm so thankful to the clients I have worked with that sometimes send me flowers and little things like that, because I get, unlike when I worked in chemical dependency and psych, At this job, I get to hand out golden tickets constantly, where it's like within half an hour, sometimes I'll save somebody $1,500 a year. And they are so excited because, perhaps they're only bringing home $18,000 a year. And it's amazing to me because it's the simplest little thing I did, but to them, it's just like they won the lottery, and it makes me very happy that I can make their day. So please do ask for help, and make sure you know what resources are available to you. It'll make your life a much easier place. Thank you.
You did mention the COVID clinic. I just want to clarify for our audience in the Coachella Valley that it's appointment only, and you can find more information about everything John has discussed, but the COVID clinic specifically at desertaidsproject.org. And John, to your point, I feel so relieved that I have a stabilized place to live. Even if I was renting an apartment, I would be outside of this system from just a regular owner. I would be concerned, well, what if they sell the property, or what if they raise the rent, or there's no sort of permanence or stability in those what ifs. And it's been huge for me to know that, okay, if I start making more money, I'm happy to pay more rent. If I start making significantly more money, I can move somewhere else and on with my life and make this available for someone else. But it makes such a huge difference. Just one of the programs that Desert AIDS Project offers, but when you combine them all together, that's why I'm living powerfully with HIV. And I'm just so grateful that Desert AIDS Project, through its entire Vision 2020 campaign, successfully expanded and is treating so many more people in need that are not, in fact, living with HIV and AIDS.
That is correct. It's great. I meet people all the time. I met a gal the other day at 7-Eleven, and I just talk to everyone because I'm just that kind of person, and found out her sister was pregnant with no insurance. So I gave her my card, and she came down to become a patient, because I'm still amazed, I tell you, that most people don't know that there's resources. So if you hear these resources today, even if you live in mid-America, tell people to research. There is things available.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. And when I share this broadcast across social media further, I'm going to create the headline, "Learn more about connecting to these services in California and in Riverside County."
Yes.
So
California.
Thank you so much.
Lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day. So there you have it, my I would say colleague in activism, because frankly I think anyone that works at Desert AIDS Project is in some ways an activist. But I just love it that you've tuned in for this special episode. Tomorrow I get to interview David Brinkman, the CEO of Desert AIDS Project, and I look forward to that as well. So with that, I just want to thank you again for watching, and I will see you next time.